In this part of the stability and oscillators, I'm going to discuss the double pole response and the origin of oscillation. The purpose of discussing the double pole response is to make you understand the effect of high Q, because the high Q increases the gain in frequency domain around the corner frequencies, and corner frequencies means the frequency around the cutoff frequencies. Now, as the gain gets increased due to this high Q in frequency response, the time domain response becomes oscillatory. But in the case of double pole or single pole, in case of single pole, there is no oscillatory response, as I already have discussed in my earlier lecture. But starting from the double pole, the response gets oscillatory if the Q becomes higher. Although for the double pole response, the response is stable, uh, but in case of higher pole response, that response may not be stable. So we need to design some compensation circuitry in order to make them stable. Although those things I'm not going to discuss in this particular lecture. Here our main concern is to make you understand the cause of oscillation, which comes through this effect of the Q. Now, once we will understand what is the effect or what is the origin of oscillation in time domain, by observing or by studying the characteristics of the device itself, we can extend the idea further to design our own oscillator by employing the positive feedback. And that thing I will discuss in this lecture. And this is the condition bifurcation criteria which we have to maintain in order to make the oscillation sustainable. This one is the general expression for the open loop gain. This open loop gain is represented by this h j omega. In general, it is called the transfer function, and which is called the double pole transfer function, because there exist two cutoff frequencies, omega h1 and omega h2. Now, you can relate such an expression with the expression of the bipolar junction transistor, where I have discussed that at the higher frequency side there exist three cutoff frequencies: one for the wiring capacitor, another for the parasitic capacitors, and another one that was for the frequency dependency of forward current gain. So in a similar way, there may be devices where the cutoff frequencies may exist more than two, as you can see from the bipolar junction transistor, where at the higher frequency side there exist three cutoff frequencies. Similarly, for the complex devices, we may have the higher order cutoff frequencies, higher order poles. That means the number of cutoff frequencies gets increased over there. But for the simplifications, I'm going to consider only the double pole response, where the cutoff frequencies are only two, omega h1 and omega h2. I don't bother what are the causes of these cutoff frequencies omega h1, omega h2, as I have discussed in case of frequency response, that the wiring capacitors and parasitic capacitors, all those were responsible for having these three cutoff frequencies for the bipolar junction transistor. Here, I'm not going to consider the reasons, but I'm just considering, in general, this is the expression of double pole response, which has two cutoff frequencies, omega h1 and omega h2. Now, in this j omega, I'm just writing j omega as s for the sake of simplicity, and after multiplications, I'm obtaining this expression. And this is a simplification steps. You can do it easily because I have just multiplied this omega h1 times omega h2 both with the numerator and denominator, and I have obtained this expression. Now, such an expression can be standardized using this expression, where this expression is a standard expression for the second order system, where this omega h1 times omega h2, I have uh, expressed this root over of this term, this their product of these corner frequencies. Here I'm referring the corner frequencies. Corner frequencies means the frequencies which uh, the response gets decreased at 1 over root 2. So this is the that means the cutoff frequencies. So the product of their cutoff frequency, root over of the product of their cutoff frequencies I have expressed as omega naught, and this is the Q, or the quality factor for the second order systems. The quality factor I have written as omega naught divided by omega h1 plus omega h2. So once I have defined these fundamental parameters with the standard expression of the second order system with this omega naught and q, I can write this expression as shown over here. The purpose of expressing a device response which has double pole into a standardized expression of a second order pole response is to make you understand the effect of this omega naught and q. Because whenever you have a device which has two poles, that is the two cutoff frequencies, or these two cutoff frequencies are always called the corner frequencies, then always you can represent the double pole of your system into a standardized second order system response. So that is the thing I have done over here. So this omega naught is expressed in terms of these corner frequencies, because basically this omega naught is the geometric average of this corner frequency, and the q is defined as well. Now what is the effect of this q and omega naught? First, consider the frequency response. In frequency response, that means I am observing the AF or AS, the magnitude of AF or AS. So in case of frequency response, if Q is equal to 0.5, you can see the response is smooth one, and the gain is 1, and it is decreasing after certain frequencies, and these certain frequencies are omega h1 and omega h2, the corner frequencies. But as Q gets increased from 0.1 to 1.0, then you can observe the gain gets increased slightly around the corner frequency. And if the Q increase further, starting from 1 to 2 and 3, you can see from this frequency response that the gain around the corner frequency becomes higher and higher as well. And the frequency at which the gain is increasing, that means this frequency is not actually the corner frequency. This frequency at which higher gain you are having, this frequency is the geometric average of the corner frequency, and that is the omega naught. Now when you will observe the effect in time domain when you are applying some step input, and as I told, the application of the step input can be done in two ways. First one, either you are switching on your device, that means to power up your device you are switching on the device, then the device is getting the step input, or initially your device was powered on and you are applying the step input directly to the signal terminal. So in these two ways you can apply the step input. So whatever are the cases, when you are applying the step input for q is equal to 0.5, you can see the output is reaching the steady state after a while, because it is taking some time, and this output you can relate with the single pole response, where the output also was reaching the steady state, which was taking some time, and the output is a bit sluggish, but after certain time it is reaching the steady state. But as q becomes higher than 0.5, and which is equals to 1 in this case, because I am comparing this q which I have experimented in frequency domain, so that the similar set of q I have written over here. So for q is equal to 1.0, so you can see a little oscillation appears around here, and the frequency response, if you observe, so there is a little gain, and that little gain is causing this oscillation in the time domain. So as q gets increased further and further, that is 1.0 to 2.0 and 3.0, that oscillation increases much more. So as the gain gets increased in frequency domain, so does the oscillation in time domain. But after a while the oscillation is settling down with the steady state. But as the gain gets increased, that means that as the q goes higher and higher, the gain gets increased in frequency domain, the oscillation will increase in time domain, and it will take much longer time to settle down with the steady state. So this is basically the origin of oscillation you can see from here. But this origin of oscillation, you you can understand that solely due to these omega h1 and omega h2, and these two corner frequencies or the cutoff frequencies are uh, depending on the particular device you are considering. So we cannot change these cutoff frequencies, because whenever a device is designed or fabricated, then their higher cutoff frequency or their bandwidth is designed, and their bandwidth depends upon this omega h1 and omega h2, and we cannot change these cutoff frequencies. So if the device has the cutoff frequencies, or two cutoff frequencies, that means double poles, and if the device is designed badly so that the Q is higher, in that case we may have such kind of oscillation whenever we will connect the device with, or we will power on the device. Now what will happen when we employ the negative feedback with such a device having initially higher Q? Let's see. So this is the expression for the double pole system, that means a device which has two cutoff frequencies. And now I'm going to investigate when I'm applying some negative feedback to the device which has two cutoff frequencies. So this is the expression for the closed loop gain for negative feedback, and I'm replacing this as from this expression over here, and I should get this one. And after a little rearrangement, I can write this one, and this is also another standard expression for the second order system response, and where I am redefining some parameters. This A naught F, which represents the closed loop midband gain and which is related with the open loop midband gain. Omega naught F, which is higher than this omega naught, and due to application of the negative feedback, this omega naught F falls at a higher frequency than this omega naught. But along with that, we can see from here that this QF, that is closed loop Q, also becomes higher than the open loop Q due to presence of this 1 plus k times A naught. So what is the significance of that? So if you have a system or you have a device which has two higher cutoff frequencies that has been that is the reason that is caused by the designer who has designed the amplifier or the system or the device, whatever it is. So that device has two cutoff frequencies, and unfortunately that device has a higher Q more than 0.5 or 1.0. So when you are employing some negative feedback to such kind of devices, the closed loop Q becomes much more higher than the open loop Q. But as I told, as Q will increase, the oscillation in time domain also will increase, and this will cause higher oscillation in time domain when you will employ the negative feedback. So these cause us stability issues, because with the second order system or second order pole, or which is called the double pole, the system is always stable, as I told you. But unfortunately, if the device contain uh, third order poles, then by employing the negative feedback, your system response may diverge and the system may become unstable. So for that, for a higher order pole, you must have to apply some compensation circuitries, although I'm not going to discuss all those uh, uh, design steps which includes the compensation circuitry. But here, since our purpose is to make you understand the cause of oscillation, so this is what this is the point where we are having the oscillation in time domain due to presence of the higher order Q. Now we need to find out the frequencies at which these closed loop gain can go to infinity. Why we should need to find out this thing? Because the frequencies at which the closed loop gain can go to infinity, so at that frequency or around that frequency, the time domain system response becomes oscillatory. So that is why we need to find out the solution for S for which this closed loop can go to infinity. And in order to find that, we need to equate this denominator, that means this one plus k times S, with the 0. Because if the denominator becomes 0, so this closed loop can go to infinity. So equating this one with the 0, which means this one I'm equating with the 0, and I'm having this expression, because the solution of finding the solution of this equation is very easy, because this expression is the second order equation in S, and the solution comes with one real part and another imaginary part. Because as we are going to investigate the solution for S having q greater than 0.5, so if q becomes greater than 0.5, so this part becomes imaginary. That is why this becomes imaginary. So initially I have assumed that S is equals to j omega, but the solution of this expression is giving us the S equals to sigma plus j omega. The sigma is the real part and the j omega is the imaginary part. This is the real part and this one is the imaginary part. So what are the significance of the sigma and omega? In my last lecture you have seen that the stable response is nothing but a sinusoidal response which was decreasing due to the presence of e to the power some minus at, and that a was real in that expression, and the frequency omega naught with which the sinusoidal signal was decreasing in my first lecture. So in my earlier lecture, so that frequency is this omega naught f. So this is the frequency at which the system response becomes oscillatory, but the system response is also decreasing due to the presence of the real part sigma. So you can relate this sigma with the a what I have shown in my last lecture in order to make you understand the stable response, how the stable response should look like. So that real part is a that was a in my last lecture, and here that I have denoted by the sigma, and the frequency at which the system should oscillate, that is the omega naught f. So there is a closed loop omega naught. So already I have mentioned that the omega naught with which at which the frequency the open loop gain goes high, and when you are employing some negative feedback, so that omega naught becomes omega naught f. So the closed loop gain becomes higher at that frequency. So the response becomes selective at that frequency, and the oscillation initiated at that frequencies. But eventually the oscillation gets decreased due to the presence of the sigma. And the condition is QF obviously greater than very greater than 0.5 I'm considering, because the oscillation starts for this condition. So these are the points that already I have discussed in my last slide. Here I can conclude that suppose you have a device having two cutoff frequencies and a Q value greater than 0.5, then with such device, if you are using an open loop system, then whenever you will power on such device, the output will be oscillatory, and after a certain time it will settle down to the steady state at which the device is designed for. Say for example an operational amplifier or any direct couple amplifier, we generally prefer the steady state will be the zero value when there exists no input signal. So you just powering on the device and no input signal is applied, so the steady state value will be the zero voltage. So we generally prefer such a steady state value. But if we apply some additional input, and that input is the step input itself, then the steady state value will be the value equals to the peak amplitude of the input what you are applying. Now with that system or with that device, when you are employing some negative feedback, the Q value becomes even higher than the open loop system. Already we have seen, which means when you are applying some negative feedback, the closed loop gain or the overall closed loop gain, although it is decreasing, but due to the increase of the Q value at certain frequency, the gain becomes higher at that particular frequency. At that particular frequency is the geometric average of the cutoff frequencies. We already have seen such things. And the oscillation becomes higher in comparison with the open loop system in case of the closed loop system, if the Q value in the case of open loop system is greater than 0.5. So therefore, for such a device which has a closed loop system with Q is equal to Q greater than 0.5, and you are employing some negative feedback, and after setting up that entire device with a closed loop system and you are powering up the device, then the steady state response will not be reached instantaneously. After a little oscillation, after showing a little oscillation in time domain, it will settle down with the steady state response. That is with the second order pole, or the double pole case. But if you have your system or the device having third order pole or even a higher order pole, so it may happen that you have switch on the device and the output gets diverged. So initially you are expecting the output should reach the steady state, but due to the badly designed uh, device, the output gets diverged. That means you have switched on the device and you are observing the output is become oscillatory, and finally it is diverging and it is reaching some higher value, and since there is a supply value, so output is settling down with the supply, although you have designed the device to be settled down with the zero voltage. So that is a complete mesh. Now that we have understood the origin of oscillation, we can extend that idea to design our own oscillators. And in order to do that, we have the only expression, that is this one. This is the closed loop expression by the application of the negative feedback. And you have seen that with this expression, we have found the frequency at which the system itself becomes oscillatory is omega equals to omega naught f. And that condition I have obtained by making this denominator or equating this denominator with the zero. The same expression I am going to use to design our own oscillator, but that frequency of the oscillation that will be obtained for our own oscillator will be much less than the frequency at which the system becomes itself oscillatory. So this is the frequency of oscillation for the system, and I am interested to design my own oscillator for a frequency which is less than this default frequency. But how can I do that? Because in this expression the only parameter that depends upon the frequency, that is this A. So in order to do that, I have to incorporate some frequency dependent parameters or the elements within this feedback factor K. So in my earlier lectures with the negative feedback, you have seen that K, this feedback network, is designed mainly or solely by these resistive networks. But right now, since I'm interested to design my own oscillator by incorporating some frequency dependent elements within the feedback network, so this frequency, this feedback factor right now will be depending upon the some frequency dependent terms. So that is why I'm considering this k of omega, which depends upon the frequency, and this omega is very less than this omega naught f, and omega naught f was the geometric average of this omega h1 and omega h2. So therefore, if I'm operating at some frequency which is very less than at this frequency, then the a omega becomes a naught, and a naught is the midband gain, midband open loop gain. So this condition is the Bark-Hessian criteria that we have to maintain. So let's see next. As I'm interested to design my own oscillator at some frequency s which is very less than the default frequency of oscillation of the system itself. So at such lower frequency, the open loop gain will be equals to the midband gain, because at such lower frequency s becomes very less than the cutoff frequency omega h1 as well as the omega h2. So that makes this as independent of the frequency, because as becomes equals to the midband gain. In addition to this, as I told that right now, as I want to play with the feedback factor, because I want to design my own oscillator at certain frequencies that I want, I need to incorporate some frequency dependent element within the feedback factor, and that is why I can easily express the expression of the feedback factor in a similar way that I have used for these open loop gain. So in this case, the frequency dependency also I have represented in a standard second order system, and such kind of expression I can write for the feedback factor if the feedback path includes such a network. So this network, you are very much familiar with this network. This is a simple RLC resonant network. So by incorporating such kind of network within the feedback path, I can easily write the expression for the feedback factor by a standard second order expression. Now, this expression I have used to find out the frequencies at which my closed loop gain goes to infinity, and from there I have obtained this omega naught f, and that is the frequency at which our system becomes oscillatory. This is the default frequency of oscillation for the system. Now the similar expression I'm going to find out, I'm going to use in order to find out the solution for S. Now since S depends upon these frequencies, because I'm going to find out the solution of this expression, where this expression depends upon this resonant network, and the finding the solution of S means we are going to find out the solution for the frequency at which this network becomes a resonant one. So I'm replacing this one, this k over here, and as I'm considering the frequency of oscillation for what I'm going to design my own oscillator is very, very less than this omega naught f, and for such lower frequency as becomes a naught, so I'm just replacing a naught over here. And finally I'm equating this with the zero, and that is the Barkhausen criteria I'm going to maintain, and a little rearrangement produces this equation, and this equation is also appearing as the quadratic equation in S, which includes this feedback factor, this 1 plus k naught a naught. Now k naught is the magnitude of this k without these frequency selective circuits. That means if S equals to 0, which represents the if there exists no frequency selectivity or no frequency dependent element, then k is equals to k naught. So that is the term is appearing over here. So this is the equation, and this is a circuit for which I have obtained this equation, and right now this is the solution. Now in this solution, the frequency of oscillation is 1 over root over LC. So here right now we can choose our frequency of oscillation. That depends upon the value of L and C. By varying the values of L and C, we can vary the frequency of oscillation. Similarly, the Q factor right now we can choose by our own, and that Q is equals to R divided by omega naught times L, or R times root over C by L. So right now the choice are ours. By choosing specific values of R, L, C, we can define our own Q, we can define our own frequency of oscillations. The solution of this expression came with two parts. One is the real part, another one is the imaginary part. The imaginary part is responsible for sinusoidal oscillation, and the real part is responsible for exponential decay. It plays the similar role that played in the case of the system response that I have discussed with the e to the power minus at factor or e to the power minus sigma t factor. In this case also, this real part is playing the similar way. That means it is nothing but is reducing the oscillation, which is completely unwanted in this particular case, because my entire effort is to design the oscillations for which the oscillation should continue for the entire duration of the operation of the circuit. But the exponential decay due to the presence of the real part is reducing the oscillation. However, in order to find the solution, I have satisfied this Barkhausen criteria. Now, the solution at which the system becomes oscillatory, or actually my circuit become oscillatory, or the oscillator is designed, is obtained from this solution, which means this appears at the denominator of the closed loop gain, and this becomes zero at the frequency of oscillation, and at the frequency of oscillation this goes to infinity. Although there exists some real part that is reducing the oscillatory response, but uh, the response or the closed loop gain, since it is going to infinity by satisfying this condition, that reduction due to the presence of the real part gets compensated by satisfying this Barkhausen criteria. Now another interesting thing is that this is the Barkhausen criteria, so I can write this Barkhausen criteria in this way also. Now if I incorporate this factor in this expression, in the expression of the denominator of the closed loop gain, so I can have this expression. Now you can easily identify that if you rename this minus k by some other factor, some minus k as k dash or some anything else, then with the feedback factor of minus k, this expression should be an expression of the positive feedback. And satisfying of this Barkhausen criteria means basically we are maintaining the condition of this minus ks times a naught is equals to 1, and that is making this denominator 0, and that is why the closed loop gain goes to infinity. And in this case the closed loop gain is the gain due to the positive feedback, and here comes the importance of the positive feedback. So basically we can incorporate and we can incorporate a frequency dependent circuit within the feedback factor k, and we can satisfy this condition, and by satisfying this condition with the within this closed loop gain, basically you are employing some positive feedback instead of the negative feedback, where this is the condition that is called Barkhausen criteria we have to maintain, and the solution for this k will give you the frequency of oscillation, and this a naught will give you the condition of oscillation, because from this expression we can easily find the magnitude of this k times a naught is equals to 1, and a naught is equals to 1 by k, 1 divided by this k naught, ks. So at s equals to omega, or the at s equals to omega naught, so this is the omega naught is the frequency at which I have designed the oscillation. So at s equals to omega naught, a naught will be 1 divided by k of omega naught, and that is the condition of oscillation we have to maintain. We'll see. Two important thing I should mention over here, that by satisfying this Barkhausen criteria, you are basically making this closed loop gain infinite, which means this ratio of this output voltage to the input voltage is infinite, and consequently we can easily show that this input voltage is equals to 0, which implies that in order to initiate the oscillation we do not need to apply any kind of external input, because as the feedback network contains some frequency selective circuit having very high Q, and whenever you are powering up your device, which will be treated as a step response to the device, so immediately after the application of the step response equivalent to the powering up the device, the oscillation should start due to presence of the high Q within the feedback path. The second thing is that this factor is the loop gain. Loop gain means when suppose consider that xi is the input signal at the input of the base amplifier, and when you are traversing throughout your the entire network, that means starting from the input of the base amplifier to the output and through the feedback factor, and you are coming back to the initial position, then the total gain will be a naught ks, because ax is the initial signal you have applied, this is the base amplifier gain, and this is the gain of the feedback amplifier. Now the satisfaction of the Barkhausen criteria means basically you are equating the loop gain with itself, with the initial voltage level, so which means this you are obtaining this one. But in case of uh, practical circuit, if you maintain this particular condition, the oscillation may not start, because the output cannot distinguish with the input. So therefore, if you will make this gain a little bit higher, very little bit higher than this unity, then since the closed loop gain is very high in this particular case, a little higher gain will continue to increase further and further and further, and finally it will produces the noise that is sufficient to initiate the oscillation when it comes back to the feedback path, because the step response which has been applied by application of the powering up action, that initiates the noise only if this gain, the loop gain will be a little bit higher than this one. And in a practical example also, here I will show you that how this higher gain influences our oscillatory response, or our response of the oscillator that I'm going to design in my next lecture.